Alright, well, last year I filmed a cute fun little video, actually 2 years ago now I guess. In 2021 I filmed my 22 5-star predictions for 2022, and they were 2022, they were 22 books that I wanted to read for 2022. We're revisiting it in a vlog format because I did actually film myself reading a good amount of these books, giving updates as I went along and seeing if they really were 5 stars or if I was completely off base. That's what this video is going to be. It's already pretty long, so I kind of want to keep this intro short. But the first thing that I want to do is just talk about what those 22 books were in case you don't want to go check out the video. I will have it linked up above in case you do want to go see the full-length version, but if you want the spark notes. The 22 books were House of Sky and Breath, All Roads Lead Here, Book of Night, The War of Two Queens, Our Violent Ends, The Bromance Book Club, Demon in the Wood, Along the Saltwise Sea, Fangs, The Midnight Library, The Little Prince, Heart of Flames, The Wise Man's Fear, Raven, Jade City, Gyo, Come Tumbling Down, Empire of the Vampire, The Burning God, Dark Age, The Heart Principle, and Foul is Fair. Just to give you a little heads up, I didn't finish all of the books, but I did get through a really good amount. Stay tuned, at the end we'll talk about whatever I didn't get to. Just before we completely dive in, there were 3 books that I read off camera. So the first one is House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas. It was a 5-star. I have a whole video actually of me reading this. If you do want to check it out, I'll link it up above. It's full of my spoilery thoughts throughout it. So if you're a big Sarah J. Maas fan and you want to know what I thought about it, go head over there. It's a good time. But I give it 5 stars, predictably. I love Sarah J. Maas. I love Sarah J. Maas. What else can I say? All of her books have very similar tropes in them, very similar situations, and they all work so well for me. Crescent City is her adult series, which I guess it's not her only adult series anymore, but anyways, it's her adult series, fantasy series. It's more of like a modern take on a fantasy world where magic is being used to also power technology. There's just a lot. This is like a little melting pot for people and worlds. I'm gonna leave it there. The next book that I read, I did not give 5 stars, actually. So that one is A War of Two Queens by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I originally actually gave this book 4 stars, and revisiting that, I was shocked because I thought I'd given it 3 stars because I did not like this at all. This is the 4th book in the From Blood and Ash series. It's very much an in-between book. We have a lot of fallout from the 3rd book in this one that we're trying to resolve, and all our characters aren't completely together in the beginning, and there's a lot of planning and trying to figure out how to fix the mistakes that they made in the last book. There's a lot of discovery on Poppy's part because she is discovering more about herself and what powers she might have and how it's going to help her or hinder her. There's a lot of character development, I suppose, but I will say that the reason that I didn't give it a very high rating is because I could not stand to be in Poppy's head in this one. She was so frustrating and so annoying. Not to mention that there is a long-awaited scene. If you guys are From Blood and Ash followers, you know what scene I'm talking about. You know what scene we've been waiting for, and it was a fade to black. Okay. Like, go off. Why include it then, you know? Anyways, that was a 3-star. The writing was mid, the plot was mid. It felt like an in-between book between what's going to now be like a much larger series. So yeah, that one's that. And the last book that I read off camera, and that is Fangs by Sarah Anderson. I gave this 5 stars. I actually read it for October, like Halloween time. I absolutely adored it. It's just a really good feely style comic where a vampire falls in love with a werewolf. It's cute, it's adorable, it's a fast read. I really don't have any complaints except for like, I want more, because that's a good complaint to have. So 5 stars. So alrighty, we're off to a pretty good start. I did make like a little chart to track what I'm rating things as we go, and at the end we'll see like the average rating overall for what went on. I already obviously know what went on. We are now in 2023, guys. Let's just go in, dive in. I'm doing this on my phone because I don't want to get up because I have a cute, yes, you're very cute. You're a very cute baby in my lap, obviously. So I've been listening to The Heart Principle by Helen Huang, and
I've been actually physically following along as well. I've been marking this book up. It's so far my favorite of the entire, I think this is the last book, so the trilogy that she made. So the Kiss Quotient, the Bride Test, and now the Heart Principle. This one's my absolute favorite. I mean, Anna is just like such a sweet character, but she's also just very relatable in a lot of ways. And I don't think that you necessarily have to be like neurodivergent to relate with like a lot of the thoughts that she has. She is typically very people pleasing, and this story has a lot to do with masking as well. And it's just kind of a hard thing to read about if there's any of that you relate to. She's like discovering a lot about herself too in the story. She doesn't have any diagnosis in the start of the story, so it's really following her journey of self-discovery as well as like learning to like accept that about herself, and also how to like bring her family into it, because her family just expects like so much out of her, and like she's going through a really hard time throughout this. I like want to wrap her up in a warm cocoon, and I want to yell at everyone that just won't listen to her, you know, or refuses to like accept what's in front of them. You know, it's not even just about listening. It's just, it's hard. And I love the love interest in this one. It's Quan, who is Michael's best friend in the first book. And he's like this badass, like shaved head, motorcycle dude with tons of tattoos, but he's a softie. His whole like backstory, they tell you in the first book, is that he had to learn how to be a badass after like their dad left them, and his brother had Asperger's, I believe, or was he's on the autism spectrum, and he would get teased a lot. So Quan would get in a lot of fights, like defending his brother, and that's why he like looks like such a badass, but he's really just like a soft ooey gooey boy. And I love him so much. Like he's the perfect love interest. I mean, in general, I think that there's been a lot more awareness now with like neurodivergency and ADHD and autism, and like how they do have a lot of crossover in a lot of ways. And reading this, it's so apparent to me right now, and I like there's a lot of things that I don't deal with, but there's also just so many that resonate with me, so I've just been underlining. But I'm on like page 237. I'm at like this point, so I'm over halfway. I'll give another update when I'm at the end, but so far this is looking like a 5-star to me. Like this is my favorite of her entire trilogy. Boop, 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 boop.
I finished The Heart Principle. It's a 5-star, no doubt in my mind. This is a 5-star read. I loved every single book in Helen Huang's series. I mean, I loved The Bride Test, I loved The Kiss Quotient, but this is definitely the best in my opinion, and it could be because I just related to so much of what Anna went through and Anna goes through, but I think it was just that, not that Helen Huang had to learn from her mistakes and her other ones to make this one the best, but it feels that way. It feels as though like every critique that she got from the first 2 books, she applied, thought of, and corrected in this last book. I don't know if this is everyone's favorite book, but it's definitely mine. I just think that the relationship was done so respectfully. I think that the conflict, it made a lot of sense. I mean, both of the characters in this story have a lot of baggage that they're bringing into the relationship, and a lot that they themselves are dealing with, so that when there is a bit of miscommunication, it didn't feel unnecessary. It didn't feel like something that was just being added in as a plot device. It felt like something that honest characters would go through. I love the way that this ended. I think that Anna's self-discovery and Anna's self-acceptance was the main theme inside of this, and it was explored and ended in a realistic manner. Like, that is the best way to describe this. She didn't get over anything too quickly. She was true to her character, and she learned how to stand up for herself, which I think maybe, if in my opinion, The Kiss Quotient didn't do that as well. I mean, our main character in that one, she learned how to stand up for herself through a man, and I think in this one, the man is kind of the accessory. Like, he helps her kind of realize that there are people out there that will understand her, but Anna is the one who makes the changes herself and who wants to change for herself, for her life, and also is assisted by the man, I guess is the best way to describe it. I think that Anna was probably one of the more complicated characters characters in my opinion, because she was so good at masking her issues and her feelings that the people around her were left unaware of the things that she actually needed, and she was forced in that regard to stand up for herself, because otherwise she could always continue down that path, the easiest path in the moment but the hardest path in the long run. And I just think that she did a very good job for herself. It was really hard though to read at times. Like there was some scenes that just like broke my heart, absolutely, and I don't know, I think I loved it. I loved it. 5 stars. So already this vlog is off to a good start because this is the first one I'm reading for the vlog, and it is a 5-star read. I predicted correctly. Let's see what I read next. I actually started 2 books that I haven't really mentioned. The first audiobook that I started was A Wise Man's Fear. I started this over a week ago now, and I am really enjoying it. I think I do this thing when I'm reading sequels where I very sternly refuse to reread the first book most of the time before I go into the sequel, because it'll start coming to me while I read the book. I'll be like, oh yeah. Like in the beginning, like that cold entrance, I'm like, I don't remember anyone. I don't remember your names. I don't remember who we are. I don't remember what we're doing, why we're here, any of it. But then like as it progresses, I start to really like recall all of the details, which is a fairly lucky thing for me. So I'm kind of in the mid process of that, as in I have now caught on to who everyone is, and I'm pretty sure I remember where we are in like the story. I'm only about a chapter in, but I don't clearly remember where we left on the past storyline, like because we're not there yet. He hasn't started talking about his past yet, and I'm like, talk about it. But I'm really liking it, like really liking it so far. I'm not that surprised. I started 3 books. The second book though that I'll talk about is Jade City, which I picked up also last week. I'm only on page 5, so not much to update on that. I really wanted to get it started, but then I started reading Six of Crows, which I think is actually a pretty good series to get me in the mood to read Jade City, because I feel like the premise is hitting all the same marks for me. Like they're in this like grungy part of the city. There's, from what I understood at least, it seems like there's like a crew of some sort, and I'm pretty sure there's supposed to be a heist in this story, which is kind of the basis of what Six of Crow is. So I'm excited to jump into that after I'm done with my reread of Six of Crows and Cuckoo Kingdom, but in the meantime, it's on hold. And then the third book that I have made the most progress on that I started is Bromance Book Club, which I picked up on audio. I think I'm like a quarter of the way through right now. I'm loving the premise. I thought that I would like it just because of the premise. I mean, it's a group of guys that are reading romance books to better understand their wives, but I am now more fully understanding that premise. And it basically is actually this pro baseball player who, him and his wife really had like a fast start to their marriage. Some might call it a shotgun wedding, you know? He's never around because he's a major league baseball player, so he's out a lot, and she's raising their twin daughters. And overall, she has been left feeling unsatisfied in the bedroom, which is a rude awakening that our main character did not know of until she has a real big O. You know what I mean? A big O. I feel like weird saying that word on the internet. So she has that, and he's like, what was that? And she's like, what do you mean? And he's like, but you've never done that before with me. And that's when he finds out she's been faking it the entire marriage, basically. So it's like their marriage kind of coming to this like really jarring stop, because like she's realizing it's not going to work out in some way or another. And then all of his friends are like, we're going to get you guys back together, but you have to do it our way. You're joining our book club. And he's like, this isn't a joke. And they're like, you're joining our book club. You're going to read this romance book. He's like, this is my marriage, not a joke. And they're like, romance books were written by women for women. If you read this, you will understand what your wife freaking needs that you don't know about up until now. And I think some of the parts are getting a little bit preachy in the sense that like I really do not believe that major sports ball players, there's more than just baseball on that team, that's why. And like politicians and like basically just like these really powerful men would in actuality have like this kind of book club and talk about toxic masculinity and the effects that it has on like the world, and also like how they need to be more accepting of femininity and all that stuff. Like the conversations they're having are really great and really woke. I definitely feel like that would not happen. I want it to happen. Do not get me wrong, I would love for that to be something. I just don't think it would. So in that sense, I'm like, this is like a girl's wet dream. I can say that, but I can't say oh. I don't know. So I'm only about a quarter of the way through though, so I will update you when I finish that and if I make any progress on the other books. Yeah. I wanted to do an update. I did finish Bromance Book Club the other day now. I liked it. Okay, but the thing that I'm realizing, as I said, Bromance Book Club, like I gave you the idea of what it was about, and I was really excited to read it just because I do like the concept of like men reading romance books. Romance books are largely created by women for women in a lot of ways, you know. There's obviously a lot of genres, but like that was kind of like the overwhelming amount tends to be around that idea. And like for someone to read it to like gain insight on how maybe a woman thinks, I think that's cute. What I will say is the major climax of the story, I won't say what it is, but when it happens, I felt it coming from a mile away, because from the very first moment that he makes sort of a misstep in how he's taking on the challenge of winning back his wife, I was like, that you shouldn't be doing it that way. You shouldn't be doing it that way. And I didn't know that that was going to be the climax, but like the more it happened, the more I was like, I feel like this is going to be it. And when it was, I was just kind of like, yeah, how are you so stupid? And in a lot of ways, I think the guy was kind of dumb. The way that their relationship failed, I'm like, gosh, you really kind of really didn't try at all. Which is to say, whatever, you know, like he's trying now. I also was like taken out of the story in the sense that like the things that he tried, the kind of books that he was reading. So he was reading a Regency novel, which I do like Regency novels. I've read a couple, but they're not my thing. Like I don't feel some type of way about Regencies, except for in shows. I really like to watch like Regency style things. Not read it though, but I think the issue is that it's just like not what would work for me. If that checks out. Like it's a good book. I really liked where it was going, but I have like this very narcissistic part of my brain that's like, well, that wouldn't work for me, so why is it working here? Like it's working there because there's other people than you, Brittany, you know? But I don't think that that should be a mark off on the novel at all, that it wasn't like my specific romance kinks, I guess. But I think that overall it ended up being like a 3.5 stars for me. It's not bad at all. It's above average. It just was predictable in some ways, convenient in others, and I mentioned it before, but I just really do feel like the men in it were just kind of not giving. They didn't feel realistic in some ways. In other ways they really did, but in others I just didn't feel it. So yeah, 3.5, which is a bummer. So not a 5-star. But yeah, on to the next one. So let's do an update of what I've been reading. So Wise Man's Fear, I made a hint of progress in it. It is a, how long? No, almost 43-hour long audiobook, and I have 40 hours and a half left. I'm listening to it on 1.2 times speed because I just like, I want to be able to absorb it. I did actually start another audiobook, which is All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. Originally, I actually wanted to read it physically, but when I read From Lukov with Love, I listened to it on audio and I loved the audiobook. And I'm really liking this audiobook so far for All Roads Lead Here. They have like two narrators for like the girl and the guy, and like the guy speaks his own lines in like the girl's part and things like that. I haven't gotten to his part yet, if he has a part. I'm enjoying it. I'm quite literally just at the very beginning though. I've probably made like 30 minutes of progress in. I'm definitely getting to that point where we're on December 1st. I don't see how I would be able to finish all of these books while also reading like other books that I wanted to read that like keep popping up for me, like finishing books that aren't on this list within the end of the year. But I might just end up finishing what I can finish within this year and then having this video go live, and then if anything finishing the rest of the books start of next year or something, and then just kind of like do a part 2 to it, or maybe I'll make it one whole video and then just post it in the new year. I'm not sure. It's just, there's some hefty books on here. Like I still have to finish Dark Age, which I'm about halfway through on that one, so that wouldn't be too hard. I have to read The Burning God, Empire of the Vampire, Jade City, most of the Wise Man's Fear, Heart of Flames. Those are really the biggest boys, but those are big boys, you know? Like, I'll do my best. We will see how I go, and we'll see what I end up doing with this. I really am liking the Wise Man's Fear. I feel like I should note that. It's just like a lot of concentration right now. So I just finished All Roads Lead Here. I enjoyed it. I really did. When it ended, I had that like really excited feeling where I was like, it's gonna be a 5-star, but then I sat on it for a couple minutes and then I was like, it's not really a 5-star, because I don't think I would reread it. Like the plot was pretty predictable. The climax itself I felt was a little bit exaggerated, but I mean, you always have to have that like climax scene where it doesn't seem like anything's gonna work out, you know? My overall feelings were like, yeah, this was good. It was sweet. I liked the relationship. some of the nuances kind of made me cringe, but overall it was easy to ignore. I really do like how slow burn Mariana Zapata does her books, but I will say this is my second one that I've read, the other one being From Look Off with Love, and I thought that the chemistry was a lot better in the other one that I've read. Not that the chemistry wasn't good in this one, I thought it was, I just wasn't as absorbed into their relationship, I think. It had some of the tropes that like I'm just not fond of in romance, but it was done in a way that I didn't mind them. I feel like that wasn't like a raving review. Like I said, I actually did consider giving this 5 stars. I really loved the underlying like grief plot because for the most part, I don't think I talked about it. So Aura, like we start this book because she's going through like a huge breakup. She was in a relationship for 14 years. The relationship ended and she's decided that she needs to go back to her hometown. And the last time she'd been at her hometown was when she was like 7 or 8 and her mom, who loved the wilderness, loved to hike, disappeared. So she had to go live with her aunt and uncle in Florida, and like this is her first time making it back. She did a road trip. She feels like this is the place that she should go, and she already found like this place to rent. And of course, like the landlord of that place to rent is just like this gruff and mountain man. Like it's a very strong grumpy sunshine plot. Like it's so grumpy sunshine. She was sometimes a little too sunshine for me. I've realized I like grumpy, but she also was like a little light, like because even though she'd been going through all this bad stuff, that she's had all this bad stuff happen to her, she's still just like a light. She's still really joyful. She loves people. She loves talking to people. She loves making people happy. And she's just like decided to go back to her roots. And we just kind of follow that journey of her living with this landlord who didn't necessarily want a tenant, and whose son, who's like 16-year-old son, 15 or 16, kind of went behind his back to arrange for. So we find that all out in the first chapter, by the way, like the first couple of chapters, but it was just really cute. Like I said, I love the underlying grief plot because it's still a lot about her dealing with the trauma of not knowing what happened to her mom like all those years ago. The climax wasn't that climaxy, I guess, because it felt very healthy. Like as far as like relationships go, it felt very healthy, and you don't see that a lot in romance, I feel like, or I haven't been seeing that a lot in romance, so I liked that. But I think it's a 4. It did have tropes that I didn't like, but they were done really well, so I would recommend it if you're into grumpy sunshines, a tiny bit of an age gap, if you like the whole like attractive hot dad thing, I guess is the best way to describe it. He's a hot dad. You would like it. But yeah, on to the next, right? I started Our Violent Ends on audio. I'm 10% of the way through right now, so there's that. It is such an easy read though. I'm really glad I picked this one up. I don't have the physical copy anyways, so I don't feel too regretful about listening to it on audio, but I'm actually about to put up the rest of my Christmas decorations. As we can see, my black Christmas tree has made her comeback. I'll probably just give you an update at the end. So far, I mean, it's a sequel, so there's not too much that I can talk about with it, but I actually remembered the first one fairly well. Audiobooks are one of those like funny experiences where like I'll either remember it perfectly or I'll remember almost nothing. I have such specific memories of listening to These Violet Delights because I remember it was when I was living at like my other house, not my mom's, but the other one, and there was like a rose bush out in the backyard that I was determined to bring back to life because it was like overgrown and like none of the roses were really flowering. And honestly, I was just following my instincts with that one, and I was just like chopping away at everything that like I felt was crowding it. And I also cut, like there was like these vines that were growing into it, and I was like chopping away at that. And honestly, it did a really good job. I remember that a few months later, like the roses were really blooming. So I hope that plant is still doing well. Maybe I should ask the guys. Maybe I messed it up. I don't know. But I have clear memories of doing that during These Violent Delights, and listening to Our Violent Ends, I'm like recalling the parts in These Violent Delights that I listened to while doing that, so that's pretty fun. And it does leave off maybe like a bit of time after These Violent Delights has ended, and already like the big bad in this one has made some sort of appearance. I will say that like this one isn't a book that I really am trying to discover what the ending is. It depends. Some fantasies I really like to, others I just want to be along for the ride. This one is one of those that like the atmosphere is so good, so rich, and the characters are so internal. Like you're internal in the characters already, like you get to read their thoughts, and they have a lot of internal conflicts that it's more fun to just follow along with it versus like trying to figure out who is potentially the big bad. Yeah, I'll let you know how I feel about it, but so far, I mean, I'm liking it as much as I liked the first one, so good sequel, potentially. I just finished Our Violent Ends. I liked it. I'm gonna give it a 4 stars. Let's get into that, because the thing is I think it dragged a lot. There was a lot of moments that I felt didn't need to be in it for the way that the story ended up going. Like about the last few chapters, I started to get impatient like with what was gonna happen, because it kind of felt like we were building up to something, but the buildup had been building up for so long that like I just wanted it done. But I'm not docking that many points for that, just because it could just be like the mood that I'm in, you know? So it's mostly, though, a lot of like the plot twists, in my opinion, were fairly predictable. I know why those things had to be dragged out the way that they did, but at the same time, if those things hadn't been dragged out in the way that they did, the story would have moved a little bit faster, which I think I would have preferred. This one has to do a lot with a blackmailer. I won't like discuss too much on that because, again, no spoilers, but there's a blackmailer in it, and that blackmailer I predicted honestly within like the first 10% of the book. I think that the ending saved a lot of it for me because it was starting to like get very repetitive. It felt like the same conversations and moments kept being had, but the way that it ended was very satisfying to me. I liked the first one more. We'll stick with that. I just finished Dark Age by Pierce Brown, and I loved it. This was probably my favorite reading experience I've had with Pierce Brown's work. I love Red Rising. It is still to this day one of the #1 books that I recommend people in my life whenever they ask me for like something good, like really good. And I know they're ready for that caliber, because the thing about Pierce Brown's books is they're bloody. It's a philosophical debate. They're very intelligent people, and they're very cruel people in every sense. And I feel like Pierce Brown has to be an insanely intelligent person to be able to write in the way that he does, because especially in this one, I noticed just how many words I would never think to use ever. I like to imagine that I have a very good vocabulary. I have beautiful array of words that I can use at any moment, and maybe choose not to. And I like to think that if I were to write a book, I'd be able to write it really well. This is another level. I don't know if I'd ever be able to write as well as I think that these books are written. Granted, I don't know, maybe there's people more intelligent than I that have read this and been like, ew, that's dumb. Good for you. I'm glad you're very smart. Me, I love the danger at every turn, because I was thinking about it, and whenever people think of like a high stakes book or story, people automatically will say Game of Thrones. Like that is like the #1 thing that people will think of with a high stakes novel, because so many main characters die. There's no guarantee that any main character will make it out alive. And I will say that this story has extremely similar high stakes, if not on par. The only reason that I'll say if not, like not completely as high stakes as Game of Thrones, is because I feel like more main characters survived through the trilogy, the first trilogy, than like Game of Thrones would have. But the thing is you never have their safety assured. Main characters are constantly being put in these awful, atrocious situations where they're being tortured for information, or they're caught by an enemy that is absolutely malicious and vindictive and ready to murder them just in the most painful and long way possible. That is something that tends to happen a lot in these books, and you suffer with them because you don't know if they're actually going to die, because the stakes are high enough to the point where you do believe that there's a great chance that a main character will die. There was a death in this book specifically. I won't talk too much about the details in this because this is pretty far along in a series. And I guess technically you don't have to have read Red Rising first. I really recommend it, because if you haven't read Red Rising first, this is going to be such a cold start. I don't want to give too much away. But there was a death, and if you've read this book, it was the one that happened with like the nailing and that tree. Yeah. I mean, it was such a shock, because it was a scene that was very closely followed by a lot of hope. A lot of hope. And not followed by, sorry, this scene followed a scene of a lot of hope. And to have it end in that way was just like, I'm still left reeling. I mean, I don't even know how to put everything into words. Not like this. Let me see if there's any line that I can read that won't give too much away that kind of explains. Basically, it's a line that says, The joy we had is no lesser for having ended in horror. It is not gone as I thought it was. It is here in these moments that are larger than the world itself. They were alive, they lived, they were loved. And I mean, that's not even like any of the fancy words that are constantly being used in this. It's just really good ideas. I loved this. I loved this so much. I loved my reading experience with this. This is a 5-star. Easy in my book, and I want to read all of them like this now. Like, I want to do a reread of Red Rising and be able to like actually follow it along, because I can tell that Pierce Brown's writing has improved, but I don't know how much it's improved, because listening to something on audio, even though like you can get an idea of how beautifully something's written, I don't think I fully comprehended the extent to how beautifully this was written until I followed along audibly and physically. I loved it. I'm so glad that this is one that I did finish. Sorry, I have like the hiccups now. I don't know why. I got overwhelmed. But I started Along the Saltwise Sea on audio. I'm loving it. It's such a good, fun time. This is exactly what I needed today. I don't know how long I have left. I don't think much longer. I might be able to finish it today. If I do, I'll let you know. I think I'm like over halfway through, and it's only like a 4-hour-long audiobook, so let's see what happens on my errands. I'm enjoying it though. I have an update. I have 2 updates actually. I finished Along the Saltwise Sea and I really enjoyed it. I will say I liked the first one a lot more. The first one felt a lot more whimsical. It was like whimsy at every corner, and this one was unfortunately not really that. It was whimsy, but it wasn't as whimsy, and it felt a lot shorter. It felt like a lot more had happened in the first one than in this one. I do like where the story's going. It feels a little bit more of like a storyline versus just like a fairy tale, but it just didn't hit the same ways the first one did. So it was a 4-star. Oh, also, if you were wondering, it's a bow. It's gonna be there for this update, so. And I started Fowler's Fair the last night while I was wrapping presents. I'm having mixed feelings. It is a story about a group of girls getting revenge on these guys that threw a party from a different school, and this group of girls go to the party. They're 16, and one of them does get sexually assaulted. Like, she gets drugged and taken advantage of, and it's like a story more about female rage because she's furious, her friends are furious, and they're planning the demise of these guys. While I love that premise, I love the idea of female rage. One of my favorite books was Female of the Species. Like, this one feels almost camp and a little bit like a movie. I totally understand like the rage aspect. The extent of it seems dramatized for the story. Like, for example, I mean, after it happens, she does ultimately tell her parents, mostly because she tells her parents, she's like, I'm gonna handle it myself. And what I found like kind of almost too good to be true is her parents just being like, I believe you will. Like, not like getting involved at all. I do really like though that the parents did get involved in this. I feel like a lot of times that gets left out in stories, and I think it's important to show that side of it just because I liked that that's like the backup plan. If killing the boys doesn't pan out, she told her parents, got the rape kit done, and that's like a backup plan. The idea is good. The execution has me questioning it, but we'll see how it goes. I'm about halfway through. So I finished Foul is Fair by Hannah Capin. I think it's a 3-star, if not lower, but only lower because I had high hopes. I love a story about female rage, and that's exactly what this is, in fact. But like, I think the dramatics that were taken in this one, the positions that these high schoolers were in felt weird, and I really at times didn't even feel like I was rooting for our main character when I definitely wanted to be. And plus, like, the plot twist in this, the one that gets revealed at the end and is supposed to be her whole change of heart, I was guessing it from the very beginning. It wasn't satisfying. Actually, none of this was very satisfying, and I think that maybe that should be part of the point. Like, no one wins in this game because they did that to her and she plans to murder them. But like, even the way that this ended in the very, very end, I was like, okay, I can see where this like is gonna be headed. It's like an open ending up for interpretation, but it gives you an idea of what's going to happen. But I don't know, it was really unsatisfying. I'm kind of sad. This is not, it's not bad, but it's unlikable. But other than that, I did actually purchase a physical copy in the 50% off sale at Barnes & Noble of Demon in the Wood. So we're definitely gonna be reading this physically, and I don't have to worry about the fact that my graphic novel version on my Kindle returned. So, small update, I've started 2 books. One is The Little Prince. I only got a couple of pages in until the cats yelled at me to feed them, but I'm really liking this. I actually didn't really know what this is about, and right now it just seems kind of like a whimsical story about like thinking the way that children think. You know, like kids, they think in such a magical way. Like everything just makes sense to them. Everything is an adventure. And I feel like this story is trying to talk about how adults tend to lose that as they grow up. And it's as if they're talking to a child though. So they're like, you have to be nice to the adults in your life, you know? Go easy on them. They're kind of slow, but I'm really liking that. I don't think it'll take me long to finish it all, but I do want to savor it, and I am annotating a little bit as I go. The other thing that I started is Book of Night by Holly Black. I'm almost 2 hours into it. I love it. I actually am adoring it. It's so interesting. I didn't really get spoiled at all for this book, so I'll give you kind of what I'm gaining from it right now, just from the very beginning. But we have this world, which is like our world, but they've found a way to alter your shadows. And by altering your shadow, you can get high, you can have like a more enigmatic personality, you can be more creative, you can do more, you can just be aesthetic, like to have a cool shadow. It's almost like celebrities will treat it like plastic surgery, but when they need to get a new shadow to alter their shadow again, they have to steal it from someone else. And so there's people that have like stolen shadows and they have no shadows, and these people don't have a lot of emotion or personality. Like they're just there, but they're not present. And specifically right now we're following our main character Charlie, who seems to have been kind of a little bit of a con man in her life. She's trying to get out of it. She's on the straight and narrow. She works at a bar. She's trying to avoid all that. And right now it seems like her life is trying to reel her back in. An old friend asked her to find her husband, boyfriend, baby daddy. I can't remember which one, but I mean, he is all those things potentially. But he's potentially on a bender. And to top it off, Charlie has like a boyfriend who has his shadow stolen, and he seems like he's going to be a very interesting character overall. I'm enjoying this a lot. I like the audiobook too. I was really hesitant to pick up the audiobook. I'll talk to you when I finish those things, or if I change anything. It's officially the last day of the year. I should be filming my every book I've hauled this year because I took most of them out of the shelves, but then I saw how many books I have to talk about and I got stressed, and I thought, why not try to finish all the books that are my 22 anticipated reads? So I'm gonna grab the fast ones. So like Demon in the Woods, Raven, Geo, and The Little Prince. I think these are like it. I'm also at the very end of Book of Night, so there's a chance. But anyways, the cats are over there. There's so many books to haul. They're right there. We're gonna sit down. We're gonna try to read all these. I'll give you updates as I finish them. Okay, first update. It's from my phone because I have a little bug and a little gremlin. So anyways, I just finished Demon in the Wood. I loved this. I really loved this. It's a backstory on the Darkling. It's like him when he was growing up, and like just one incident that happens with him. And it basically shows like the state that the Grisha were in when he was born, because they weren't respected, they were hunted, they had no place, they had no home, they were basically just trying to make it. And it's him specifically with his mom as they travel from a different camp to a new one, and he has a new name again because they constantly have to keep changing their names and changing where they live to stay safe, since their power is already so different than even what a Grisha would have. And I really like this. I think it gives a lot of clarity to how he was made, like the ruthlessness that drove him, like how his mother stood by his side for so long. I think it's a really good bridge piece. Like, I already liked the Darkling, I'm not gonna lie, but if I didn't, I think this would at least give me empathy towards him. And to top it off, I loved the art style in this. Like, let me show you oh yeah, this is the one I wanted to show you. Like, look how pretty. I love that. It's really good. I think it is a 5-star. Let's do this one next. I really liked this. So it's basically Raven's backstory. This starts off really like cold and hard. Basically, she's been a foster
kid her whole life, but like her foster mom was going to adopt her, and they get into a car accident, and Raven loses her memory, like, of everything before that moment, and she goes to live with her would-be mom's sister and her sister's daughter who's her age, and like they go to school together, and it's also Raven just like coming to terms with not knowing and being okay with it, but also like realizing that there's strange things happening around her, like she might have powers. I really enjoyed this. I love this art style. I specifically actually picked this up because I saw his work on Instagram and I was like, yeah, that's gonna be one that I want to read. And this is like the kind of Raven that I like. I really like the cold emo Raven. I don't know how to describe it, but like the only Raven version that I've loved is like the cartoon one from like the first like Teen Titans show, you know, like not the one that like they all look like cute and small, like the more mature one, I guess. But I loved that version of Raven. And when I found out that she wasn't always like that she was more like reserved and shy in most other interpretations, I didn't love it. So this one though, she is reserved, but she's not really shy. She's like fierce, and I loved it. I will say there was a few parts where it just felt like parts of the story were getting skipped. Like I would like turn the page and then I'd have to turn back around and be like, did I skip something? Like, what's going on? That happened at least 5 times, but I did really enjoy the story. I think it's more of a 4-star than a 5, but I have high hopes for the other books because there's already a few others. I already have Beast Boy too, so yeah. I'm thinking Gyo. Okay, listen. This is probably my least favorite of all of the Junji Ito books I've read. It was still good though. I'd probably give it a 4-star because the thing is, it's more of just like the style of horror wasn't for me, less so that it was bad. I do think though that this one, the resolution felt very unresolved, and to be fair, that's actually typically how Junji Ito books go, I guess, from the ones that I've read. But I think also just the nature of this one was really gross. To be fair, again, his style of horror is very much body horror, like nasty body horror, just things that make you like clench, I guess. And this is no exception. Basically, in this one, these fish start walking onto land and they smell really bad. They smell terrible, like they're rotting. And they might be rotting because, I mean, though they're walking on land, it's like these legs are just attached to them through their gills or like their mouths. It's really weird. They can't die. Like, they just don't die. No matter how many times you hit them, the legs just keep walking. And basically it follows Kaori and I forgot the dude's name. He says her name a ton. Tadashi, I think? Yeah, so Kaori and Tadashi are in Okinawa just on a vacation when they come across this like fish thing first, and no one really believes them. And Kaori specifically has a very sensitive nose, and she is like very upset by the smell. She hates the smell. She wants it gone. It's making her sick. Like, she can smell it even when they leave. And it really just grows from there. It's really gross. I mean, this one, body horror, has some nasty elements to it, obviously, but this one just kind of was a little bit much for me. I don't know. 4 stars though, because like, it's definitely good. It just wasn't for me. Maybe lower. I don't know. I think that now I'm about to go to a friend's house just for like New Year's. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to read any more books, but I will let you know if I finish anything else. But I'm glad we busted out 3 of them.
So before my last vlog update for this video, I realized I never actually updated you on Book of Night. So let's do that really quick. I did end up finishing it actually on the 1st of January. I was almost done with it on the 31st, but the last bit I read on the 1st, and I really enjoyed it. It actually did end up being a 5-star for me. I didn't see the plot twist that came along. I like what the plot twist was. There was a lot of aspects of it that I did guess, which I think is why it was more fun, that like such a big piece of it was something that I completely missed. It really added to the story. I loved Charlie's mind. I just liked the way that she was going to get what she wanted, no matter what. It was satisfying to me. I loved the love interest through it all, whether it was like a moment that you should have loved him or not, I loved him. And the way that it fully ended was exactly what I wanted. Like, once this reveal happened, this is how I wanted it to end. I want more. I don't know if this was a standalone or if there's going to be more to it, but I would totally read another one. So 5 stars. yeah, this is gonna be the last update for my anticipated books that I wanted to read for 2022, or my 5-star predictions. I finished The Little Prince finally. I don't know why, but the last like 50 pages I just put off until yesterday. So that is the last book for this video. So let's talk really fast about Little Prince. 5 stars. It was such like a thought-provoking, simple story. It's not what I thought it would be. I thought it was more of like a children's story, but instead it's more of like a philosophical view of the human condition and what one little prince from a tiny little planet would see when they come here and see what our priorities are versus what our priorities maybe should be. It makes you view the world in different ways. So I did love it for that, and I can see why this would be my mom's favorite, like one of my mom's favorite books as far as that part of the discussion goes. But yeah, that's it. I guess it was a 5-star. So I read 15 out of the 22 books for my 22 5-star predictions. It was a pretty good amount for seeing how late I started this. I didn't realize originally that I was gonna want to make the style of video, so I started in November. I did good in that sense. I am bummed that I didn't read 7 of the books. So this is a little bit of a skewed perspective because maybe those are the ones that would have all been 5 stars, but I did want to do a little bit of a tally and see just what my average rating was for my 5-star predictions. So let me grab my calculator. Here we go. 5 plus 4 plus 5 plus 3 plus 4 plus 3.5 plus 5 plus 4 plus 5 plus 5 plus 4 plus 4 plus 5 plus 5 plus 3 equals divided by, how many did I say again? 15, right? 15, yes. Oh, that's not bad. So I actually had an average of a 4.3 rating. Not terrible. I actually thought it was gonna be lower. Let's see how many 5 stars I actually did end up giving out. It was House of Sky and Breath, Book of Night, Demon in the Wood, Fangs, The Little Prince, Dark Age, and The Heart Principle. So I gave out 7 5 stars out of the 15 that I did read. It's not terrible. I mean, hopefully I do better in next year's. My bangs don't know what they're doing today, so please, if they've been bugging you, just know they've been bugging me too. I'll come out with a video. I want to do like a 5-star predictions for this year as well, so look forward to that, and ideally I'll actually like read all of them this time. If I don't, then I don't, but one of my goals is to get down my physical TBR this year, so look forward to a lot of like videos centered around that. I know that this video is already a million years long, so I don't want to make it even longer by babbling some more. I don't want to edit more babbling, I'm not gonna lie. But I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that it was fun to watch. Let me know if you like this style of video. I think I do, so if you don't, that's kind of a bummer. But other than that, yeah. That's that, actually. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. I feel like there's something I'm forgetting to say. Oh, now you cooperate. Actually, I don't like that either. I hate that. All right, whatever. That's fine. It's fine. Everything is fine. I'm fine. You're fine. 5-star predictions are fine. Reading only 15 out of the 22 books is fine. Just know, anything you do is fine because you're doing it. You're doing your best. That's what I tell myself. So I'm gonna stop talking because I already said I was gonna stop talking and I didn't stop talking. So I'm gonna go. Bye. Maybe I need to cut it. Maybe that's why they're bugging me so much. Okay, bye.
We're beautiful creatures.